It was a means by which they're trying to bring you in, not to push you away.
This was beyond hazing. This was not hazing. I mean, they didn't haze me the way that they hazed the other probies. The other probies would get floured, or they get water dumped on them, or, you know, teasing acts, and then they were accepted. Those things didn't happen to me.
The women thought that, all right, we get in, there's going to be a couple of incidents, they're going to say things or do things, and it'll go away. But it wasn't going away. There was always somebody in there needling.
I wasn't allowed to eat with the men. They wouldn't buy food for me. They wouldn't cook for me. And I would go in to work and have nothing to eat.
If I saw the chief tell other firefighters not to eat in the kitchen, or if there were other firefighters complaining every day that their car tire was slashed, or if someone came by and said, I'm from Pine Lawn Cemetery, do you want to pick your plaque out? Here's what we have to offer. And the guys were having the same problem, then I would say, maybe I'm being sensitive. I don't know, you figure it out.
I went to visit Katrina one day at her firehouse in Brownsville, and I asked, hi, is firefighter Cannon working? And instead of her coming out, they throw this naked, black, one-legged doll.
I had an incident at a company picnic where I got beat up by one of the guys, and, and I walked away. I brushed my shoulders off. I never said a word. The next day, it was business as usual. And I look back, and I'm sorry I didn't have that much courage. I was really, really petrified of repercussions. Like Katrina said, every day you went to work, you didn't know what it was going to be.
The stories that I've heard are abominable, what these people went through.
One woman claimed to be raped. One woman claimed to have been left alone in a burning house. It's my belief that a lot of the complaints by women were overblown.
There was a 5-alarm fire in Queens today. A hardware store went up in flames around 10.
I've had the entire tank of air bled out of my breathing apparatus, unbeknownst to me, until we got a job. And then you crack it, and it's like nothing, no air. So you have a choice. Are you going to go in and suck it up like a man, or are you going to stand out in the street and fiddle around while everybody else is going, and they don't know what your problem is. All they know is, I didn't see her in the building. I saw her in the street.
I worked with one or two guys that were really, after the way they expressed themselves, I said, wow, they're sick. I mean, there was so much hate, so much animosity against this.
Harassment have been reported. As the president of the Women Firefighters Association, Brenda had the added responsibility of bringing the harassment to the attention of the department.
Then I started getting telephone death threats to my house. I had to get an unlisted phone number. I mean, one guy who was clearly calling from the firehouse because you could hear the fire department dispatcher in the background, called and left a death message on my answering machine.
We had pornography pouring into our house. We had strange people coming to our house saying they wanted to come up, and we didn't know who they were, but in light of the death threats, we knew that wasn't good. It was in a case where Brenda was going to be appearing at some function, and someone said she was going to be shot. Didn't deter her from going, by the way, but it still was very difficult. And while all this is going on, of course, she had to do the job. She's a firefighter. She's got to get up, got to work 9-hour tours and 15-hour tours.
I just was stubborn. I mean, I was not going to let these guys defeat me because I really thought that, number one, I deserved to be on this job, and number two, that for all I was going through and everything, I knew that other people had suffered a lot for important things. You know, the easy stuff anybody can do.
Although the media publicized some isolated incidents of harassment, for the most part, the women firefighters tried to stay out of the spotlight.
In the beginning, there were almost no women who were willing to come forward and speak up about the wrongs that were being done, and with good reason, because the backlash against any woman who puts herself in the limelight in the fire service is quite devastating.
Another woman was soon to catch the city's attention. In January 1983, New York Magazine published a glowing cover story featuring Zeta Gonzalez, a firefighter from Engine Company 60 in the Bronx. At the end of their probationary period in September 1983, 2 women firefighters were fired. They were the department's most visible women, Zeta Gonzalez and Brenda Berkman.
We had to go back to the training academy for re-evaluation. Not training, but re-evaluation. One day we came to work, it was nearing the end of our re-evaluation period. We came in at 6:30 and the man at the desk, he says to us, "Oh, you're gonna be fired today." And we said, how do you know that? Because nobody had said anything to us. He said, "Because I read it in the paper."
That's such a rare occasion that it is almost not credible.
Captain Alfred Mayeroff wrote in Brenda Berkman's final probationary report that she was the weakest firefighter he had ever encountered.
One thing that gave me hope at the time was that it was ludicrous, because Zeta and I were consistently rated in the top 3 of all the women in terms of physical abilities by anyone, including the fire department, on their own task.
I know for a fact that Brenda did all the evolutions over at the fire academy. She did everything she was told to do because I was in the same squad with her.
So to tenure the other women and fire us seemed to me to be just so obvious what was going on here, that they were trying to get rid of us to make a political point.
An unfortunate coincidence is what Spinato called it. The 2 women who didn't make it, the 2 most visible, the one who made the cover of New York Magazine and the one who filed the suit. Brenda Berkman, who didn't make it, is the one who made it possible for the 22 who did.
I think she was in 17 Engine, and I drove down there with her to pick up her uniform. And it was the most difficult thing to do. The guys all came out from wherever they were and watched, and when we left, they clapped.
Brenda and Zeta challenged their termination in court. Their court-ordered reevaluation was conducted by 2 senior battalion chiefs. In December 1983, Brenda and Zeta were reinstated with back pay and assigned to new firehouses.
When Brenda first came to the firehouse, I actually wasn't in the group that she worked in, but I was there the first day that she walked in the door. Matter of fact, she had a cake with her.
And for a little while it was okay, but then after a couple of weeks, the guys, they started figuring out how far they could go. So my view of human nature got a little dark for a while. There were a couple of guys that were nice to me. I'll never forget them because, you know, they acted like human beings.
There you go, kiddo.
Thanks.
And the thing that made it so unbelievable was that the guys that were doing this were supposedly America's heroes.
But they was talking about that, I guess. I was taken aside by different people that I worked with and asked why I was talking to Brenda, why I would assist her. Then it progressed to, I got a couple of flat tires in front of the firehouse, got some harassing phone calls at home.
Yeah.
The threats that I received were kind of, at first small, and then became bigger and bigger. All in all, though, it was nothing compared to what I thought she was going through at the time.
With the Firefighters Union still trying to reverse Judge Sifton's ruling, the only organization within the fire department to support the women was the Vulcan Society, a fraternal association of African-American firefighters.
It would be hypocritical of us to do anything other than support. How could we look down our nose at anyone and call them inferior after what has happened to us?
One day, Ella McNair, a young black firefighter from Brooklyn, tried to remove an article ridiculing women posted on a wall in her firehouse. A male firefighter, who was drunk on duty, tried to stop her. In the scuffle that followed, Ella was slashed with a kitchen knife.
It did occur
Like I said, it was a cumulative of a lot of things. I think that led to that point where they felt that it was okay to do that.
Although a hearing officer recommended the man be dismissed, he was merely suspended and fined. The firefighters union found him a temporary job, while firefighters across the city collected funds to pay his fine. This was not the first time that Ella McNair was victimized.
They placed Ella in an area that never had an African-American male. The first day she showed up to work, the wives of the firefighters were outside protesting. And she had to walk through that line and get into that firehouse and go to work. And she did.
I felt like I was responsible for women coming on this job. So when things weren't going quite right for them, I felt like, you know, in a sense that somewhat my fault if, you know, I couldn't make it better. But I just think that, you know, a lot of times none of us there was nothing that any of us could have done.
You know, actually, I didn't have a gray hair before I met Brenda.
That's not true. That is not true.
All right, one or two.
By the early 90s, things were changing for Brenda in her personal life. She and Ken Gordon divorced. Brenda began dating Pam Elam, an activist who worked as a legislative aide to the New York City Council.
People really don't often see that side of her. She's a little marshmallow, actually, and she'll go...
This is going to be used in the tape. This is cut.
Well,
out.
Well, you want the truth, right?
No,
you want the entire
but
panorama.
Is run years of the image that I've built up. You know?
Well, and aren't I glad? The thing about Brenda is that even after all these years, even after going through all the things she's gone through, she still wants to believe that the men in the New York City Fire Department will do the right thing. And part of that is very touching. But another part of it comes perilously close to masochism.
I would not have wanted to have been Brenda Berkman when we came on this job. Her name brought tears to men's eyes.
I mean, all pioneers have a tough time, but if you are a person who's willing to say, well, it's just me, folks, you know, just one woman, that's okay. You know, I'm not going to support other women. It's easier, but Brenda didn't say that.
As a result, while other women firefighters were slowly gaining acceptance, Brenda, the guiding force behind the United Women Firefighters for the first 10 years of its existence, remained the pariah of the department.
Quite frankly, Brenda Berkman went through hell.
Brenda could never blend in. Brenda Berkman's name was a lightning rod.
Every male firefighter hated her. Didn't dislike her, hated her.
It was always my gut feeling that Brenda didn't want to be a firefighter. She wanted to be the first female firefighter.
They all feel that she's got some kind of hidden political agenda, but Brenda genuinely loves the job, and I don't think that a lot of the men really are aware of that.
I can't tell you how many of my law school classmates envy the path that I have taken in my life. They think that I am just doing the greatest job in the world, and I believe that. If I didn't believe that, I would have quit a long time ago.
She knows the job inside and out, and she is really a buff.
Wacky building. I think that the women have had to prove themselves since day one on this job. Every probie has to prove themselves. That's not unusual. But even after you proved yourself at a fire, it was like, well, that was once. Let's see what happens next time.
Having worked with several of them in my career, they were a liability. They were clearly a liability on the fire scene.
There's probably a woman somewhere who's failing. They're just like, there's men who are failing. Now it's been my experience that I've worked with Rocky. She has the knowledge of the job. She worked in a truck company in Brooklyn, and that's no piece of cake. So she's been around the block. She's served her time in fires. She knows what to do. Nobody can ever say to me, that woman can't do the job. No one can ever say that.
Nobody has died in the fire department as a result of a woman working with them. fires haven't gone from first alarms to fifth alarms because a woman was working there. We have done the job.
I can't really say that I ever saw, you know, anything that they did that proved that they couldn't do the job. But that's just, I never saw it, you know? Stories floated around, how many were true, how many weren't.
Most of the men sat on the fence. They wouldn't actively do anything themselves, but they wouldn't stand up for me either.
In the firehouse, it is really important to fit in and to be a part of. But there were some men who went against that.
I've had people come up to me and actually support me and tell me that, you know, that I wish I could do what you know, could take that kind of heat myself.
You know, you can't criticize the department as a whole because there's some wonderful people on this job.
I have some great friendships that, if nothing else, I will be eternally grateful for.
It is not just the issue of women that has raised questions about the department's hiring procedures. Compared to most big cities around the country, the percentage of ethnic minorities represented in the New York City Fire Department is unusually low.
Today, I believe there's less than 320 African-American firefighters out of about 12,000.
It's not rocket science. It's been done in other cities. There are more than enough models out there to follow. What's needed is the commitment, plain and simple. That's what is needed from the city.
Over the years, the fire department has instituted various recruitment programs. These programs, however, have had only limited success in attracting female and minority candidates. But the biggest blow to the hopes of young women aspiring to join the department came in 1987. In response to an appeal by the Firefighters Union, a second U.S. Court of Appeals decision reversed some key elements of the Sifton ruling. Future physical abilities exams would be ranked by speed to completion.
The opportunity is there for anyone who wants to take that test. If it doesn't draw females, well...
Bottom line, I don't think it's a woman job. It's a dirty job. It'd be like me taking a job doing nails.
In my heart of hearts, we are firemen. And we will be firemen to the day I go to my eternal reward.
There are many talented and able and capable women out there who could easily be trained to be firefighters, but they simply don't apply because they don't see themselves in this job and they don't see it as a real opportunity for them. They see the barriers that exist and they're discouraged by them.
Between the years 1983 and 2002, only 8 women were hired as firefighters in the 11,500-member New York City Fire Department. By the early 90s, Brenda had completed a year as an instructor at the Fire Academy.